Well, the Deutsche Bank X-Tracker Japan is a Rand-based JSE-listed instrument which tracks the MSCI Japan Index. It reflects the performance of the Japanese yen and the underlying performance of the 400 top Japanese listed companies weighted by market cap. It has a market cap of 212 million Rand. Paul, take it away.
So to explain that, 212 million Rand is not the market capitalization of the Japan Stock Exchange. That's much bigger. 212
we hope it's much bigger, otherwise we're in serious trouble.
Is the market value of the instruments that have been created. And obviously that's a response to the demand that's come from the market. And at certain times, Deutsche Bank may retire certain units if they're just net sellers at any given moment. But effectively, you've got to understand what you're buying. First of all, you're buying a Japanese index, which is quoted in Japanese yen, but then it's converted using the Rand-yen exchange rate to some kind of number which trades in our market. So when you buy these things, you're buying the exchange rate issue, and if the Rand were to weaken or strengthen, that affects your returns. And you're also then buying the underlying index. Now, we know Japan is a country that's had economic difficulties, high levels of debt, a rather poorly performed equity index tracking the Japanese companies and their prospects.
So do you want to go into this ETN right now?
Not really. The Japanese ETN, as Paul mentions, focus on the yen and the Japanese index. The Japanese index has done terribly badly over the last couple of decades.
But doesn't that mean there's potential upside? Come on, let's think laterally here.
2 decades is long term, and if you haven't done anything for 2 decades, you haven't done anything in the long term, I would say.
So it's never going anywhere in your opinion?
Not in the near future. In fact, if you look at it overall, Japan actually has a worse fiscal situation than almost anywhere in the world. If you drew a graph of all the bad things in the world, Japan would be further out there than Greece.
Although I'm not so sure. I mean, I think you can see this is the 5-year return. I think it is. In fact, no, it's a little bit less. It looks like it's about 2 years or thereabouts. You can see it's not doing anything. But part of that's the currency. The other issue is when you're in Japan, the big companies there are, you know, the Japanese auto manufacturers like Honda and like Toyota, obviously, that's the largest. Then you've got the big trading companies like Sumitomo. Then you've got some, consumer companies like Ajinomoto and so on. So, they're quite big, well-established corporations. And I don't worry about the Japanese debt issue because that's just
aren't value managers having a field day here? Value managers having a field day. This is where you need to go and invest right now. But
for 20 years, it's done nothing. In fact, it's actually fallen. The Japanese market has many, many issues of the longer term. As Paul mentions, great companies. But if you look at the innovation that's coming in the world, I mean, Sony, Nintendo hasn't done anything great in the last few years. Apple has totally eaten Sony's lunch. Nintendo's new Wii 2 system is going to be considered to be, something that is not considered to be very great, let's say. The automakers, on the other hand, have done rather well, and Japan does many things very well. But in terms of an exciting place in which to be, I don't think the Japanese market is where you want to go right now.
All right, so let's go hot or not on DBX Japan.
Look, for all of these, I would say you've got to try and do something about the Rand. So I'm a single stock specific guy. I look for investments in companies, not these kinds of things, but I think you might want to hedge away the Rand risk, and then you'd be exposed to the Japanese stocks. I'm not that negative about Japan. I think somewhere in Japan's future, they're going to rediscover their mojo and get it together. But I wouldn't say this is particularly hot right now, no.
Not hot.
Definitely not hot.
Definitely not hot.